Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to everyone, and I'd like to welcome you all to our morning session. And it's going to be on the topic of the SDG in ASEAN and opportunity for cross-cutting collaboration. My name is Sasithorn Sisawat. I'm a researcher at the National Metal and Materials Technology Center, or MTech, under NASDA. And today I will be your moderator for the morning session, and it was my honor to have two distinguished guests as our speakers. And today, the format of our session is we'll have each of the speakers giving a presentation and to share their experience and their point of views. And then that will be followed by a conversation about the SDGs and the potential to collaborate among the ASEAN member states. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Kanika Chen. Dr. Kanika is the Vice President of the National Science Museum, Thailand. She has a background in biochemistry and a PhD in lifelong education. She's been working in informal science education and science communication for more than 20 years. She is also the National Coordinator for Thailand National Science Fair and also works closely with Science Festival Network in other countries. She also works on many projects in ASEAN Plus 3 network in science communication and science enculturation. And she is very active in promoting STEM education in the region through her different roles as the Executive Committee member of the Science Society of Thailand and also the Executive Committee member of Asia Pacific Network Science and Technology Museums. So I would like to introduce Dr. Kanika to the stage, to the screen rather, to give a presentation on the topic of ASEAN collaboration on STI enculturation for SDGs. Please, Dr. Kanika.
Sawadee ka. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for to the organizers for allowing me to have this opportunity to join in this forum. And thanks for the nice introduction. I think this is a very good opportunity for all of us to get together and think of the way we as ASEAN community can move forward, using our background in science, technology, and innovation to support the SDG initiative. Therefore, I like to discuss with you first on how could we start with the public. How can we prepare the public or our society to be to understand and to be ready to move forward on SDG agenda. First of all, maybe I like to share my screen. Okay. Right. Can you see my screen now? Okay. So my topic would be ASEAN collaboration on science, technology, innovation, and enculturation for SDGs.
Dr. Kanika, would you mind making it a slideshow on your screen?
Slideshow, just a moment, please.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, right. Okay, is it okay?
Yes, that's perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, as Dr. Sasi has introduced, I work for the National Science Museum, Thailand. We are a state enterprise under the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research, and Innovation. But we are also the arm of the Ministry of Higher Education in promote the public awareness of science. And I think this is important for every country that, there is agencies that is working on this agenda because it kind of support all the research and innovation to be able to connect to the society, especially to the public. So the National Science Museum, if you come to Thailand, we locate in Pathum Thani province, and we have 4 museums covering various areas: science, natural history, information technology, and also environment. So you can see that our museum or our agenda also cover various area on SDG. We also have some outreach program which brings science to the community, to the remote area. It's called the Science Caravan Project. And I think this is a good way to make sure that we try to make sure equal opportunity for science learning to everyone. Another activity that we usually run, and it could be part of the, it has been part of the ASEAN collaboration, is on National Science and Technology Fair, which is in general, it's more like a science festival. And every year we have ASEAN countries participate in this fair. It's a fair for the public, for the children. And every year we will include exhibition that is related to environment and also world agendas, for example, waste crisis, water crisis, or energy crisis. Okay. I mention all these because later on we are going to go through some of the activities that could be a point of collaboration among ASEAN in the future. Okay, the outline of my presentation, I will start by sharing you or reminding you a little bit about the ASEAN Plan for Action on Science and Technology Innovation. And then what we have done together as an ASEAN country with a group of representatives from most Ministry of Science and Technology from various ASEAN countries on STI awareness raising to support SDGs. And then last, I will present some suggestion of platform for further collaborations, always to collaborate. Well, a few years ago, there was a meeting which gather, all the countries in ASEAN to make an action plan for science, technology, and innovation for a long-term plan. That's for 2016 to 2025. And we come up with the idea that to empower ASEAN through science and technology, this is what we would like to achieve. Okay, so first of all, we would like to see that ASEAN's science, technology, and innovation become the tools to address the grand challenge of the new millennium. Second, we hope that economically we could integrate ASEAN involving active collaboration between the public and private sectors, especially SMEs, and enhance the mobility of talents. And third, we should promote the deep awareness of STI and the beneficial impacts of STI on the bottom of the pyramid. And fourth, an innovation-driven economy with a deep STI enculturation and a system of seeding and sustaining STI by leveraging ICT and the resources of our talented young women and private sectors. And then we hope that we have an active R&D collaboration, and then entrepreneurship and network for centers of excellence. And last but not least, to enhance STI management system. As you can see that in this plan, there are many areas touching SDG, and that's why it's a long-term plan. But if we could work together based on this plan, we will see that at the end, we could achieve many things that ensure the sustainability of the region. Well, with that plan, we have 4 strategies or strategic trusts. First, public private collaboration. Second, talent mobility and people-to-people connectivity and inclusiveness. And third, enterprises support. And the fourth pillar or the fourth strategy is the public awareness and STI enculturation. For this trust, we plan, the important strategy is to raise the public awareness and strengthen STI enculturation to enhance ASEAN science and technology cooperation. And the important point here is that we have to make sure that what our plan is doing is not only stay within the researchers, but the implementation is expected to go through the public. So enculturation is a process by which an individual learns the traditional content of the culture and assimilates its practice and values. And I think that is the heart of our future activities that we are going to develop together. How could we make science, technology, innovation into a part of the culture and part of the daily life of everyone, of every walk of life, okay, in ASEAN. And more than that, for this forum, we are talking of how can we make sure that the public use the science knowledge to carry on their life with sustainability. So after the plan, okay, the Ministry of Science and Technology at that time, or today is called the Ministry of Higher Education, has give us a forum to share or to call upon other ASEAN countries to join together and work on the idea of how could we work together to promote SDG through science and technology. Okay, and that happened. The first meeting happened in 2018 at our Science Festival. We have representatives from various ASEAN countries, and we talk about promoting lifelong learning to raising public awareness of science and technology for the regional development agenda. So in this forum, we share some experience or let's say key pain points in each country. And the most important thing is that we also work together on giving priority on which of the SDG goal that we should try to promote the public awareness first, and using the science and technology awareness. Okay, at that time, after working together, we come up with 5 top priorities area, including quality education, good health and well-being, clean water and sanitation, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, and life below water. I think maybe this is a common area that we find that our public need more literacy, need more understanding. And then if they have this kind of literacy or understanding, then it will help us, help the region, okay, to be more sustainable. So on that year as well, the group has already set some action plan for 3 years on each agenda. We pick up only 3 agenda first, which is the clean water, industry, innovation, and life below water, to work on the plan. because the agenda on quality education and good health and well-being, it's a kind of a large agenda which would have to connect to many other organizations in addition to the community of science or researcher. Therefore, at that time, at the meeting, we decided to work on the 3 agenda first, okay? And with that plan, we have set a 3-year activity. First year, we would like to work together on each ASEAN countries, identify, where is the main resource of their water. Okay. And then we will pull those information together, and we will see a bigger map, and everyone will see how our water connected and our life, how much our life, how much people rely on water in each region. And then the second year, we plan to work on how is your water, which is about the quality, the situation of water in each region. Okay. And the third year, what we plan to do is to talk about how can you do about your water, how can we protect them, how can we ensure the quality of your water can be improved. Okay. So that's the plan for the clean water and sanitation from that meeting. Well, after that meeting, we conduct some core activities together as a follow-up. We have a sharing session in the later side festivals on how could each country run activity or raise awareness on the water resource in that country. And also we also organize international photo contests on the relationship of human and river. And this one is to identify the water what is the water resource. We want to raise awareness on this. So I like to show you this just as an example of what we can do with the public in your country. Frankly speaking, the 3-year plan has not been achieved as planned. The reason is because of the pandemic. The communication and the possibility of organizing a lot of things has been postponed. But we try to, let's say, do as much as we can together, okay, to make things move forward. So that's why I like to share first what you can achieve. Okay. But I hope that maybe starting from next year, we will be able to get back and follow up the plan. For SDG 9, the industry, innovation, and infrastructure, our 3-year plan is first to identify industry, innovation, and infrastructure that impact on our life in each ASEAN country. And then the second year, we would like to do the training and capacity building on sustainable innovation. Okay. And the third year, we like to work on the innovation for the future, which means that, okay, after you know what the situation like, after you know what we can do, what we can do to make sure that we will have innovation, industry, infrastructure that is sustainable, then how could we innovate for the future in this area? For SDG 14, Life Below Water, according to our 3-year plan, is the first year is to collect data about life below water. So each country is supposed to collect, these data, not as a professional researcher, but more like a citizen science work, to put together all these information. And then second year, we like to connect these data together under one platform. And then the third year, we like to communicate and raise awareness about these, life below waters in ASEAN. Well, that's the 3 goals that we have worked together to set up plan among ASEAN community from that meeting. So I think those plans still waiting to be implement, in the next few years. And we are open, and I hope that from this sharing session, we could gather more people to involve in this plan. Now there are 2 more SDG that we like to share or discuss a little bit what we could do next together. Okay, these 2 other SDGs are the top priorities from that meeting, which is quality education and health. For the quality education, I think there are a lot of things we have to consider in terms of quality and equality. How could we provide quality education with people of different gender, different location, different areas, okay, with different in physical and mental condition and different age. This is a very huge agenda that we have to think and prepare in long term. Even for my last point, the age, most of our countries, especially Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, we are entering aging society. Mostly when we talk about education, we talk about youth, but are we prepared for quality education for our senior citizen in the future, which they will be very important manpower. So this is something we should think about. Second, quality education we should not see or look at only formal education system. As you know, with the digital transformation nowadays, and with the new lifestyle of the people, okay, formal education is no longer the only option of learning. Non-formal and informal education become very important tools in today's learning. Therefore, if we are talking about quality education, I think we should think of the ecosystem of learning and make sure that not only formal education is taken care in terms of quality, but also the quality of non-formal and informal education as well. And as community of science or researchers, how could we support this education, quality education agenda? Okay. I think if you are in higher education, of course, you are playing a part as a professors teaching in university. But don't forget that there are, I think, 80% of people in the society who are not in the formal education system. They are lay people, they are people in the barber shop, in the restaurant. Okay, but they deserve to have quality education, and they are also deserve to have to be able to understand science and research. Therefore, I think researchers and scientific community, to ensure this SDG, you can be an active player in the education ecosystem, especially in the informal and non-formal education. If we can play more role in science communication and help working in public science literacy, this could help to elevate the quality of informal education through public media, through museums, through learning centers, and etc. Okay. My last point on SDG-III, which is good health and well-being, which is a basic need to all. This one, I think we all realize how important it is. And recently, the most obvious case is the pandemic that we are facing right now. We would have a face-to-face conference today if it's not because of the pandemic. So I think it's something that we have to learn and think how to prepare for the future. Okay. Well, I have done some research about 3 or 4 years ago on the public understanding of biomedical science. And I found that only 20 to 30% of the general public really understand about how vaccines and how antibiotics and some of the basic medicine works on your body. That is interesting because it's something people use. People have to use in their daily life. Therefore, I think as a researchers, as a scientific community, in order to ensure or support this SDG, we also have to make sure that our public really understand and well prepare for this important technology for well-being. Okay. We will probably have to do more research on how our public are ready to the health and well-being for the future, or otherwise we wouldn't be able to plan for the appropriate awareness program for them. This time, within a short time, you see that we have to create a lot of new learning materials, okay, for this pandemic. Luckily for that all the organization help to focus on that. And once we focus on that, the public awareness on this issue raised dramatically, okay? So I'm pretty sure we should not underestimate the ability of the public to learn, but the only thing is how much effort have we put in to the public in terms of raising their awareness on these issues. Okay. Well, another point is that as an ASEAN country, when there are some issue like this happen, how much can we share, or how fast can we share resource or best practice in terms of raising public awareness on this issue. In Thailand, Mahidol University, which is a medical university, has quickly produced some resources that is very nice. and also Department of Health Control also produce some resources, which is very nice. But I think we might forget that we could, as an ASEAN country, share these resources quickly, so that we don't have to reinvent, the wheel. We can share something together. The Smithsonian Science Education Center also provide this kind of resources since last year, okay? And it's in all languages. So if we keep connected and communicated, we could work even better, respond faster, to raise awareness on these issues. I found very interesting idea on raising the public awareness from Singapore, which is, I think later on Thailand also produced something like this as well. So I think we have some time, right? So let me show you this media, and then maybe we all can enjoy and rest a little bit, for 2 minutes to watch this media.
I think the sound didn't go through the screen sharing. You might want to check your setting to see if you are also sharing the sound.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So okay. I'm sorry. I think you couldn't hear the music, but I think this kind of media, okay, is something we can learn from each other. Singapore has been very successful in controlling the pandemic since the very beginning, but because of these creative idea, okay, on raising the public awareness, that help to communicate to the public. Okay. Well, okay, let me stop this. Right. Okay. Now, next, I'm going to move to what is the possible ways for researchers to collaborate on SDG. Okay. I think we could try more as an ASEAN countries to share knowledge and research for STI enculturation for SDGs. Many of us, okay, we are, as a researcher, we hold enormous information, very interesting information, fact, and also I would say photos that would be intriguing and would give a public a better understanding of of certain science and certain technology. This information is very important for communicate or to enculturate science to the public, because the public would like to see real science. They don't want to see only fun science. Okay, if you want the public to really change their behavior, they have to know the fact. So I think as researchers, it would be very valuable to share knowledge and resources for STI enculturation. Second, if the researchers or the scientific community support more outreach and public engagement. I know that mostly researchers are very busy and they have very important work on achieving their research goal. But one important thing is that all these would be meaningful. Only the public can use it properly. You know, your research would be meaningful. Only the public can use it properly, use it with sustainability. And the important thing, the public would support the idea of moving forward this kind of research. So I think it would be very important, especially in the future, for the researchers to help, okay, to come out and then communicate with the public. The third way that researchers can collaborate on SDG is to unify or co-create a practical platforms for collaboration. Okay. We have information we could share. You can you could communicate, but then all the enormous resources, if you could share on certain platform, you can exchange. That would be even more beneficial, not only to your own country or your own community, but to the whole region. And of course, the important thing is that you have to keep connecting, okay? Keep communicating among the researcher yourself, okay, for best practice and to follow up the impact of your work on science enculturation in the region. These are some examples of what I just mentioned. On the left, you can see the very nice microscopic photo of ants. That's from my colleague who are an ant expert in Thailand. And never been, you know, important because it's so common. But then with these pictures, you know, with these photographs, a lot of young generation or even the public start to pay attention on various kind of ants, start to pay attention on protecting ants. And, you know, ants is actually one of the important animal in bioeconomy, in pest control, in many other business after, not only because it's important as one of the most diverse animal in the region. Therefore, I think sharing this kind of information make the public become more interested and listen, start to pay attention. Okay, I'm sure we have enormous resources like this in the researcher's hand, but if the researchers is happy and willing to distribute it to the media, to the museum, or to the communicators, it will be very, very useful. This is an example of many dedicated science communicators in our museum, in our country, and in our region. These are examples of people who has make a difference. You know, the guy on the right-hand side, actually, I think he is Kun Sasi's colleague. Okay, he has a passion. He is a research scientist, but has a passion on physics, and he create a community of people who love cloud and explain the scientific phenomena of cloud in the sky. Why we see different sky shapes, cloud shapes in the sky. What happened to the air at that time? What happened to the lighting at that time? So at this moment, there are like several 10,000 people following his community, his page. And it's an opportunity for the public, okay, to appreciate the beauty of science, as well as understanding why it happens like that. Okay, so I hope that in the future we have more and more scientists or researchers who work on this area. to make sure that the public could continue or could have more opportunity to connect to science, even though they are not scientists. Okay, and this is an example of platform. I think in many countries we have knowledge clip, video clip on different science, and this kind of platform is something we can co-create or we can connect to share as a resource of ASEAN. Well, and don't forget about the opportunity to share the best practice. Okay, there are many forums that we can join together, exchange idea, and even though it's a 3 days or 4 days opportunity to share an idea together, but it can make a difference. Okay, it can inspire you, and it could inspire your colleagues, to do something together. Well, that's the end of my presentation. I hope I use not too long time, but my main point is that we could use the opportunity of STI enculturation to make the public or the citizen understand better, appreciate better science, so that they can be part of the society that consider, that bear in mind of the sustainability, and be part of the society that drive the success to SDG goals of the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kanika. Thank you for all the inspiring stories on the science enculturation. And to be honest, I really appreciate your passions and your effort on connecting to the society through your museum. And it's very interesting on how you share the 4 possible ways to collaborate among the researchers to promote the SDG. So that's one of the very important point that I learned this morning. And I agree with you that the implementation is very important. It is a very important element, like especially when you try to promote the informal education within the region.
Yeah.
And I feel like we are very fortunate to have you as a museum and the science centers to support us in this learning process. And well, I actually have, yes, please go ahead.
I really believe that we need to, when we think of learning, we have to think of it as an ecosystem. You study in class for only 18 years, or let's say 24 years or whatever, but then the ecosystem of learning, outside the classroom is so important, and scientists are so important to element in this ecosystem, especially out of class, because scientists are idle, and from my study, people, the public trust the most when the scientists say something, yeah.
Right. Yeah. And now you have mentioned about the out of the classroom learning process, right? And so I actually have something to share. I'm also a part of Thai Young Scientists Academy, or TAISA. So one of our main missions was on the outreach and science communication. And recently, we are very lucky to get a support from the UNESCO office Jakarta to design and create an e-learning materials to be posted on their website. And that's under the program Fostering and Enhancing Synergies Among Science Network in Asia and the Pacific. So yeah, so we are all very excited to create those materials, because we know it's going to be on the UNESCO website, and nothing could be more excited than that, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, thank you. So what we did in this in this proposal is we did a survey on the high school students, on over 300 high school students respond to our survey about what they think about the future careers. And we actually like try to create like some learning materials so that the younger generations can see what exactly are we doing in those careers. For example, they are interested in automation and robotics fields. So we go reach out to the researchers and then we interview them. We have a panel discussion and then we have like a very short vlog of their daily life so that the children can see what exactly is going on in the researcher typical day.
So I think that's great. I really look forward to seeing that as well. I think this would be very helpful for the students and also for the teachers, because very often we find some students who are interested in science and technology, but then the teachers admit that it's very difficult for them to explain the students what exactly they can do as a scientist, on which area of scientist is possible for them according to their interests. So I think this is great. Yeah,
thank you. All right, so now that we are on the topic of the future careers and the next generation, and given the rapid change in the STI, I think we now have to discuss a little bit about the foresight and what we can foresee in our future, right? So I think that leads me to our next speaker. So I will give a short introduction of our distinguished speaker, the second one today, Dr. Nattavikom Pantuwong Pakdi, or I like to call you Dr. K, if that's okay. So Dr. K graduated with a joint PhD from King's College London and the National University of Singapore. And he used to work for the LSE cities at London School of Economics before he returned to Thailand. And now he is a lecturer at Boy Eun Pakon School of Development Studies at Thammasat University. And he is also a deputy manager of research at the SDG Move and a researcher at the Urban Futures and Policy Research Cluster at Thammasat University. And it is my pleasure to have Dr. K with us today to give a presentation about the foresight, the challenges of new technology for sustainable development. So now, Dr. K, the screen is yours, please.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to the panel, to the event today. Just some quick clarification. I'm not really an expert on foresight, but on my research, I did a lot of stuff on disaster management, disaster adaptation. So because of that, I get involved with, like learning about what can we do in the future, how can we improve resilience. We obviously get to do a lot with the future, and through the process, I get to engage with a lot of foresight tools or techniques. And I would like to share some of what I learned, and because of my job, I also deal a lot with the SDGs, and I learned the process of the SDGs. How can different group of people, how can scientific people, social scientists implement and integrate the SDGs into their works and their research? So hopefully my presentation today would be of help to most people today. I would like to share a screen right now. So I promise there are going to be a lot of pictures. Okay. All right. We recently launched SDSN Thailand as well. So just to announce that, and I would talk more about it later on, because last night the SDSN just launched the SDG index with they kind of rank how sustainable each country is, but that's something later on today. So this is something everybody already know, the SDG 17 goals, nothing very different, something we have been seeing for the past 5 years. Some of you who work with the SDG since before the implementation might seen it way before the rest of the world, but we all know about this 17 goals. Just now, when I was listening to Dr. Ganika, when she was asking experts to rank or to kind of associate themselves, which goal they think they're most concerned with or they work a lot with, I am quite surprised, or not really surprised, that I didn't see a lot of people associate themselves with goal number 1, which is no poverty. And I see very few people associate themselves with goal number 5, which is gender equality. I work with SDG a lot. For the context of Thailand at least, goal number 5, which is gender equality, seems to be something that most people overlook. It's either because we feel that gender equality is not really a big problem in our countries, our region, or not. That's something we can talk about. And one thing that I find really, really amazed, not really amazing, shocked, not really shocked, really amazed me, is that goal number 12 is not identified, which I don't know, because when this is my experience, my personal experience, when I work with people on the SDGs, I feel like most people look at the goal and assume, like just by looking at the goals without looking at the targets. So when I was listening to her, I actually add this slide. So just to let you know that these are something that are really, really relevant to technology, science. From goal number 1, there's actually a target that talk about equal rights to ownership, basic service, technology, and economic resource in one of the targets. That's the same for target 5B, which is promote empowerment of women through technologies. In many countries, the term gender might encompass alternative genders or third genders, many things, and we're in the Pride Month right now, so we might be able to incorporate that as long as it fits your national context. So in Thailand, it fits perfectly. It might not fit in other places. So that leave the expert in that particular country to kind of look at it. Goal number 12, which surprised me because it's talking about food and consumption, sustainable food and consumption. So it's also talked a lot about the management of natural resources, sustainable tourism, which obviously going to involve a lot of technologies and trying to make sure that a lot of our tourism places are not being destroyed. Also, reduce waste generation, food waste, food loss is in the target as well. And more importantly, 12.8, support developing countries' scientific and technology capacity for sustainable consumption. So it's in this goal. So, we will talk about collaboration. So these are something that I would like to highlight before I move on. So as we also know, before we eventually come to the SDGs, there are so many things in between. It's not just out of the blue. We have already experienced many sustainability issues that lead to the SDG, and the SDG itself is also linked to many other global initiatives like the Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework, and also in 2016, the Habitat-III, which is associated with goal number 11. And before that, we also have Kyoto Protocol and even the Millennium Development Goals before eventually lead to the SDGs. So because of the SDGs, we want to have, the goal is we want to have a sustainable future. So because we want to have a sustainable future, our action today will dictate how the future is going to be. So there are a lot of people who are thinking that how about we end that, basically the SDGs as well. How about we envision the future and then look back to our, time at the moment, and along the way, how can we improve the situation? What do we need? What kind of technologies, what kind of knowledge do we need to implement in order to reach the goals? So obviously foresight, this is very basic. If you go Google, it's going to come out everywhere. So foresight is just a form of strategic planning that enables us to think about the futures. It provides us with principles for understanding complexities, building resilience, and setting directions. Essential to achieve the SDGs because it's enabled us to implement policy based through informed approach and opposed to a set of assumptions, and help us think of long-term solutions that ensure no one is left behind. A lot of implementation, a lot of policies today, you need to think about the future. What are some of the implications? What are some of the complications that might arise from the policies? If we do not fix now, then it's going to cause a lot of problem in the future. Same for many other developments. You should see that by using foresight, there are so many opportunities if you associate it to science, technologies. AI is coming up a lot. How can, just now Dr. Kanika talked about aging society. How can AI research improve the quality and reach, because we always talk about quality. How about, can we reach everybody? Are we leaving anybody behind in the healthcare system? AI, artificial intelligence, can kind of fit this purpose. Digital technologies. Digital technologies can be used in almost every sector. In Thailand, a lot of implementation have been done on agricultural productivity, which, in my perspective, this is my very own perspective, quite late. Because in many other countries like Israel, leaving the problem aside, Israel already implement a lot of digital technologies in their agricultural productivity. That's the same for the Netherlands. So in a lot of my research, a lot of my talk, discussing with a lot of experts, we were talking like the Netherlands is about 1/4, 1/5 the size of Thailand, but they are produce huge amounts of agricultural exports. How can they do that? Because they use digital technologies or something. Singapore is implementing a lot of digital technologies in their food culture as well, trying to be independent, trying to be resilient. Obviously, Singapore will have to rely on other countries for food, but the fact that they're investing in digital technologies in order to be resilient, it's really something, I find that really exciting, because they think about the future. If something were to happen, and we don't know what can happen, but we are already prepared. If anything happens, we are well prepared. So they already have plan B, plan C, plan D. That's something we should think about. Satellite imagery can combat deforestation. Big data, very big right now. Getting quieter and quieter. Used to be very, very big before the pandemic. Big data analytics can help identify so many important things that we can use. Drones can deliver essential supply, especially during disaster where a lot of area cannot be reached. Drone technologies can be implemented. Digital finance can enable new models to deliver basic services. Right now, cryptocurrency, digital finance is coming up a lot, and maybe coming up not in the right reason because of Tesla, and then the values drop a lot. But this is something you can think about. You can invest. It's very interesting. Yeah. But the reason that we need foresight, the reason that we have to think many, many, many times before we implement a lot of technologies, because as we know, we have trying to implement technologies to the point that sometimes we force technologies to be used in area that might not really fit the context of that area. So this is the cartoon. I have been using this cartoon many, many, many times. So a lot of experts from developed country or more developed country going to less developed country, trying to influence the people using these technologies without realizing that in that particular area, there might be knowledge that are also very important, but can be jeopardized, can be hindered by the introduction of new technology or so-called modernization. So in this picture, for example, scientists bring this wonderful mobile app to these three ladies and saying that, with this application, you can identify where the water sources are. These ladies who have been living in this area for a really long time, obviously they know where is the water source, but the problem they're facing is the water sources can be very far from where they live. So they actually want the technology that help them carry, all this water to their home, not to identify where the water is, because that they already know. And to think further, because I work with this as well, if the ladies or the society eventually adopt these technologies, meaning they will not, and most likely will not, pass down the knowledge of identifying water sources using their traditional knowledge to their children. So this valuable knowledge can be lost. So obviously you can think of, a way to store this information digitally or trying to record this information. That can be alternative solution as well, or might as well we engage with them, we talk to them, we try to find out what they really need, and eventually come up with the technologies that can help them better. Food production in many countries, we think about output, we think about trying to increase the productivity, increase the food output, which is I would say it's the effect since green revolution since the 60s and until today. But we are also using a lot of chemicals in our food industries. Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar as well. We are using a lot of chemical in the food industry. So it obviously is going to increase the food output, but at the same time making the food, I say, poisonous. And it's going to cause a lot of problems with the health issues within, well, among farmers and consumers like us as well. This is also a very interesting thing because I put here the heart and health. Let's say we have scientific outbreaks. We know we have the best medication. We have the best knowledge on how to prevent heart diseases, right? We all know that. And part of the knowledge of, health science is that, if you want to have a healthy health, you need to exercise. But in reality, a lot of people do not exercise. You know what I mean, right? So scientists cannot really solve problems such as why people do not exercise. What are some factors? What are some, like social factors? You need to kind of, collaborate with health science. You need to collaborate with social science to actually understand the people. And this also go with a lot of I would say a lot of research as well. I work in, as I say many times, I work in disaster. You can come up with the best GIS data showing where it's going to be flood. And you already explain that to the people who live in this area that your house will be flooding. But eventually you come back 2 years later, people living in this area, they might choose not to do anything. And most of the time we just use very basic reasons saying they are lazy, they are, not knowledgeable. But if you actually study this area, talking to the people, understanding how the people feel, you may understand that most of them have their livelihood, they might have their knowledge, they know if flooding were to happen or disaster were to strike, they know how to cope. And more importantly, that most people tend to forget is they do not have the money. Every time disaster happens, most people tend to believe that, everybody is being affected the same. It's not. If you're poorer, you tend to be affected more. Obviously, if you're rich, you are poor, your house might be destroyed. But if you have more money, your recovery will be much quicker as compared to poorer people who may not even have money to buy necessities after the disaster. So these are the things that scientists, technologies, a lot of engineers need to work with other fields, whether it's social scientists, geographer, humanities subject, or very importantly. And foresight and health kind of like avoid a lot of dilemma. Recently, we've seen a lot of, right now we are trying to move towards the electric cars and stuff, but biofuel is still coming up a lot. So there are a lot of talk, a lot of research on biofuels. Biofuel is the future, is the replacement of fossil fuels, which I agree to a large extent. However, you shouldn't forget that in order for you to obtain a lot of biofuels, you need to grow them. And where are you going to get the land? Most of the time, it's through deforestation, such as palm oil in many countries in Southeast Asia, a lot of canola oils, a lot of what they call sugar cane in central Thailand and also in Brazil, which cause a lot of problems with the water quality and deforestation. And you also have to be careful with a lot of policies because promoting things such as sugarcane. I have a friend who worked in the dilemma of the biofuel argument in Brazil. So obviously the government trying to use the biofuels as the reason for deforestation. And they also use the agreement that in Brazil, so basically they want to protect the Amazon forest, so they don't touch the Amazon forest. But Brazil is such a huge, massive country. So apart from the Amazon forest, you have other type of forest. So instead of cutting down Amazon forest, they choose to cut down other forests because they use this kind of argument saying that this forest is not as important as the Amazon. Biofuel is the future of the world. So we have the justification to cut the forest without realizing that, different animals kind of live in different, forests. And also within the forest, even though it's not the Amazon, you also have a lot of indigenous people. Are they being compensated? Are they being taken? Most of the time, the answer is no. And when they come resist the state or they come to resist the big companies, The big company or the state will use the justification. These people obstructing the modernization of the country. They are denying the advancement of technologies. They are denying the fact that biofuel is the future of the world. And imagine putting yourself in the shoes of those indigenous people. So, your home is being destroyed for something you will not use. So are we leaving somebody behind? So planning, you don't even have to use foresight. Planning, understanding everybody, engage with everybody, bring everybody into they like to use the term stakeholder and actors onto the table, and then discuss. I wouldn't say solve the problems, but it might improve the situation, make it better, at least, fairer. I put orangutan here because I think a few years ago, the United Kingdoms, the supermarket called Iceland, come up with the commercial saying that palm oil is bad, palm oil is destroying the home of orangutan, which is true. The things I'm kind of concerned with this kind of message is, so you are banning palm oil, which is kind of in almost every product available. You need a substitution. Where are you going to find the substitutions? Canola? Equally problematic. Are you going to use corn? If you live in many parts of upland Southeast Asia, or even in Indonesia, not really Indonesia, upland Southeast Asia, Thailand, Laos, Myanmar, growing of corn actually causing a lot of problems because farmers burn their fields and it caused the problem of PM 2.5. But these are the substitutions for palm oil. So is using substitutions really, really promote sustainability? Or would it be better if you encourage the farmers to adopt a more sustainable farming techniques? These are something that there's opportunities. I like to, my undergrad is science, so I have the justification to say this, that I talk to many people. I like to talk to, and like technologies and innovation doesn't have to be rocket science or trying to build something new. It can be trying to improve the situation. The practice is not sustainable. How can we have a new practices? It might involve only tiny bit of changes, but in the long run, in the long future, it can create a huge improvement. So I use the foresight within the UNDAF processes. So examine the strategic context, analyze the trend, driver possibility of the future, along with time horizons. So it can inform, but to be captured, budget and planning decisions, 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, something like that. Openly engage with wide set of views, seeks opinions of people, the public, especially vulnerable, extremely poor citizens. Look at the issues from multiple lenses. Diversity and alternative perspective are important for understanding and defining weak signals. And when we talk about foresight, you have to look at, I will talk about this, about the signals. Identifying possible futures and trends, very important. What is the trend right now? Cryptocurrency is coming up, data science is coming up, aging society is coming up. How can we integrate the three together, for instance, or even AI technologies? Build on policy implication, reviewing what genuine strategic alternatives look like, and how can you enable resilience as well as pushing for design outcomes. So I talk a lot. I give so many hopefully inspirational messages. I don't know. I hope. I wish. What have I done, or what other people have done? So let's look at some example. Hopefully, some of them can be very easy. So I don't know. So in Thailand, we have an agency called, and I always get this wrong, Thailand Science Research and Innovation Promotion Centers. It used to be part of the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation. So they are planning, they want to have this plan. They want to have the science, science, research and innovation plans. So they come and talk to us. They discuss with us, how can they have a more inclusive plan? How can they have a better plan? So we come up with the idea of foresight. We divided the country to 6 regions. Obviously, we want to do more, but due to time constraint and also COVID-19 pandemics, the best we can do is to divide to 6 regions as according to the development schemes in Thailand. So we have the north, the northeast, the central, the east, the south, and the 3 southern provinces. And then we try to identify the trends, nationally and locally. So we come up with trends. We try to link it to SDGs to see what is missing, and then try to come up with the analysis. When we done with horizon scanning to discover the trends, and we discovered many interesting trends. Like in three southern provinces, if you talk to most ordinary Thai people, you would think that most people would think that the things that they want to improve the most is peace and trying to solve all the conflicts. But actually, when we discover the trend, we feel that it's not. The thing that they want to solve the most is drugs and abuse substances. These are the things that most people don't know, but economic downturn in many other countries like Malaysia or in the Middle East actually caused a lot of Thai people from these three provinces to return to the country. And when they return to the country, there's no jobs for them as well. So what happened is they turn to drugs. And not many agencies kind of concerned with this. That's one example. Another example we find a trend is that when we talk about disaster, when we talk about environmental problem, most people think of flooding. Most people think of sea level risings, tsunami, all this, right? Most people tend to forget about drought. The trends from all over the country in Thailand, most of the people are concerned with drought, and drought will cause a lot of problems. So that's the trend we identified. After we identified the trend, we asked the experts. I think there were about 300, 400 experts involved in this project to actually rank which one is the most concerned, which one we have to kind of address. And then eventually we have a strategic direction workshops, which is interesting because everything is done online. Obviously, it's not going to be as effective as seeing face-to-face. I would say this is something technology will have to improve a lot. But that's the best we can do. And then we identify the direction and eventually come up with a plan. So right now, they already think about what to do from 2560. It's from year to 2565, which equivalent to, I cannot remember, 65 minus 543, year 2022. So they already think about after year 2022. So from year 2023, what other, so we are doing that project at the moment. But a very interesting thing is if you look at I'm sorry, this is in Thai, but it's actually if you compare the important trend, the important needs of each area, of every area compared to the SDGs, interestingly, goal number 5, which is gender equality, and goal number 7, which is renewable energies, are missing, which surprised me as I said the same thing to the one that Dr. Ganika was presenting earlier, which surprised me because I thought gender, we know that gender will be something that scientists, most people will not think of. So we actually find an expert on gender, expert on gender, expert on LGBTQ, expert on women's rights to actually do the horizon scanning, also do the Delphi as well, and even involved in the workshop to find about strategic directions. And even they don't see gender as something important when compared to other problems, at least for the context of Thailand. So that kind of, obviously is still very important, but by looking at all these trends, looking at the needs, using strategic direction, what you want to happen in the future, is kind of show you what kind of policies we can do, okay? And this is another example from that project. Well, it's called the catastrophe or the CAT model. If you, I put the CAT model on top left because when I was trying to look for the picture, these are the pictures that came out. Yeah, so the CAT models. Well, anyway, it's about the catastrophe model with something which is more integrated model, which is something I find very interesting. We talk about the event set, hazard, vulnerability. This is all technology. This is all something new. In my master degree dissertation, I remember I did about flooding extent in the country of Mozambique. So basically, we run the models, and then we see like the model give me, take the inputs such as the wind speed, the waterfall, the water quantity in the river, all this kind of information we input in the models. Then the model gives me the flooding extent. We use the flooding extent, compare it to the satellite image taken by NASA. So if the model fits 90%, 80% is mean we know that if we use the same model in the same in the same flood basin, if we have the information before the actual event, let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's going to produce a very accurate models. So this will give people within the area times 2-3 weeks time to evacuate. So this kind of technology you can invest in can improve a lot, can help in terms of evacuation, whether it's earthquake, tsunami, or floodings. Something very interesting. GIS, the CAT model. This is very interesting. This is very interesting, and I invite everybody to actually look at this. Apart from models, I also talk about how can you get people to input, to kind of, you should create a platform to enable civic engagement. So this is from Georgia, not the Georgian state, the country of Georgia here. So the state audit come up with this SDG program, come up with this SDGs. The they have the state audits around the world trying to integrate SDGs to their practices right now, because they feel that most of the time the state audit is too economics. Everything, when they're trying to solve the problem, they will just think about the economic aspect, which is not very efficient. So now they're trying to integrate more of the social and environmental aspects into their practices. So one of the ways to do that is, and to engage with the SDG, they enable a platform for people to actually go and fill in the problem they're facing, the corruption they see, the priority that the government should be setting. The state audit collect all this data information from the publics, and then trying to influence the government or trying to inform policy that something should be done. This comes back to the thing I say, innovation, technology shouldn't be don't have to be something, like out of the world. This is very basic. You actually create a platform trying to engage with the people. Nowadays, everybody have access to mobile phone. Everybody have access to 3G, 4G technology, 5G technologies. These are something that is very basic. You can do that. Georgia again, in the Caucasus. Or in Thammasat universities, in the Faculty of the Economies, we also come up with the water resource management schemes, trying to engage stakeholder people in the area to understand the policies of water management. What are the problems? If some policy should be improved or other policies should be done in order to improve the water management within the area, something that is very interesting. It works and it gives so many interesting information. Or in my other research cluster, the urban resilience, we come up with the urban resilience games. We got funding from the government of Canada, and it's part of the project Coastal City at Risk. So similar project is being done in Manila, Lagos in Nigeria, and Vancouver, Canada as well. So in Women Thailand, our groups kind of come up with these very interesting games. So, and then when you play this game, you assume the role of the city governor, right? And then you need to have at least 4 or 5 people. So each of you will have a different, it's a metropolitan, so Bangkok metropolitan. So I might be the governor of Bangkok. Dr. Kanika might be the governor of, Samut Sakhon, and somebody else might be the governor of Nakhon Pathom, all these kind of things, right? And then it's very interesting. You get different people, engineers, scientists, nurses, doctors coming in and play these games. And then we say, now you are facing flood. What are some of the policies you want to play, you want to enact in your cities? But whatever policy you're going to enact in your city going to affect other city as well. So let's say I want to create a flood wall. But if I create a flood wall, the flood water is going to flow to the nearby cities. Would the nearby city accept these losses? If they do not accept these losses, what are some of the things they want? What compensation? I say it's interesting because when you get the engineer, you can see engineer want to build everything. When you get a lot of, scientists also want to build everything. But if you get like social scientists, they don't want to build anything. They want to help everybody. And then you got into a big argument because when engineer want to build something, I being social scientist, I blocked it. When I blocked it, policy cannot be enacted. So the role of this game is, you can come from any background. You have so many roles. You have not everything will work because you only look at your field. You do not understand, how the expertise from other fields. So this kind of game I would say open the world of a lot of people to see, the needs of other people as well. And then other project we did, we also go to a lot of communities, ask the community to eventually identify where are their assets. And if disaster, we call crisis, were to happen, where do they turn to health and what kind of assets they would require? So one, we understand what asset they need, what location they want, or what things they are needed. We can encourage more implementation. We can, collaborate with a lot of sectors in order to improve that asset. Interestingly, when we were doing this project, we have one crisis called disease outbreaks. That was before COVID-19. And one of the things I always hear from participants is not going to happen, not going to happen, not going to happen. Everything not going to happen. And I said, let's say it's going to happen. What are you going to do? So I don't know, because disease outbreak like COVID-19, do a lot of people expect it to happen? No. Can it happen? Yes, we already experienced the SARS. We already experienced many things. So, these are something foresight can help. And you are going to deal with a lot of people saying, not going to happen, not going to happen, not workable. This is not feasible. The only thing I would say to them is, how about if it happened? If it will happen, what can you do? So I love to say, expect the unexpected. We already experienced a lot. Flooding 2011 Thailand happened. Nobody expect that. The tsunami 2004, right? Happened. Nobody expect that. COVID-19 happened. Nobody expect that. What else, So let's say you're going to have the meteorite hitting the earth again. Already happened million years ago. But if that were to happen, how can you prepare? And also more goals before I eventually finish my presentation, which is very long, I guess, 30, 40 minutes, I want to finish my presentation with more of the targets that encourage more collaboration. So obviously goal number 17, which most people might not think that is important, which is very important because it's want to promote sustainable technologies to developing countries, knowledge sharing. So if you already share knowledge among science technologies, you are already helping goal number 17 a lot. Goal number 9, universal access to information and communication technology. Communication is the keys. I see a lot of examples from the previous presentation about trying to communicate to the peoples. Very important. We work with a lot of government agencies of many Southeast Asian countries. The thing I hear a lot is we have a lot of knowledge. A lot of researchers have done so many things. The problem is they cannot communicate it to the people. We come from a scientific background. We have a lot of knowledge. We tend to speak in a certain way that normal people do not understand. So would it be time that we actually invest in communication, invest in trying to build somebody who can communicate more effectively, efficiently, and, communicate the knowledge to the rest of the world. Last slide, as I promised. Now there is an initiative, or I would say there is trying to push for the 18 goals. So there are actually more alternative, the 18 goals. Some countries already have their own 18 goal, like Laos already have the 18 goal trying to get rid of the landmine, Cambodia as well. But this in the global stage, they are trying to push for, like the 18 goal. Interestingly, if you actually look at the 18 goal that most of the country or most of the most of the community trying to push are all about technology, disaster risk resilience. You obviously going to involve technologies, safe digital life, space for all, life with artificial, communication for all, digital technology serving people and planet. My personal favorite is obviously goal number 18. Because I feel goal number 18 is already being addressed in many other goals. So digital technology serving people and the planet. These are something. Obviously communication should be one of the targets, but this is the goal that if they want to implement the 18 goal, that's the one I would vote. I don't know how about you. All right, and thank you so much for having me today, and I return the stage back to Kun Sasithorn.
Thank you, Dr. Key. That was a very interesting talk. And myself, as a researcher and also with a background of engineering, I agree with you that engineers want to build. And based on my experience, most of the time it's not very practical. Well, but thank you for sharing your thought and your experience on the problem of this connection between scientists and communities, and your success story and tools on how to cope with that problem and identify the actual cause of the research problem in order to be inclusive and connect to several stakeholders, looking at multiple lenses, like you mentioned in your slide, and that leads to the alternative perspective and alternative futures, right? So foresight is one of the very important tools to be able to handle and tackle how we can have those uncertainty in our future. And actually, I saw like most of the tools and mechanisms that you mentioned, it actually agree with what Dr. Kanika mentioned in her slide too, on the 4 possible ways on how to collaborate and initiate how we work together within the region. Is that correct, Dr. Kanika?
Yes, actually, thank you very much. I really like your presentation, Dr. K, and I think there are many ways we can collaborate in the future. I think there are many interesting tools to engage public that Dr. K has developed. Maybe and have already tried as a prototype model or implement in certain areas, those games to engage public in public policy. I think that is really great. So those resources could be shared among ASEAN countries, and if we could find best practice on how to encourage, the community to use those resources, to promote the awareness, to get the public involvement in this area, it would be great. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. I actually have 2 questions for Dr. K, if that's all right. You have mentioned the COVID pandemic crisis that's going on right now. And I think that's one of the unseen possibilities and the uncertainty of the future, right? The first question is, how does it affect the progress of the SDG in our region from your point of view? And the second question is, how could the strategic foresight play a role in this case?
Thank you for the question. I don't think it is really my point of view. I think it's already evident in many aspects. The COVID-19 actually obstruct and slow down the success in implementing the SDGs and trying to become a more sustainable future. There are in fact so many studies which is done in a short period of time, but quite rather, I would say, effective as well, informative in showing what kind of information that is, what goals, what target are being affected by the SDG. I would say almost every almost every goals are affected. So obviously with COVID-19, decrease in economic activities, lead to income reduction and problem with poverty worldwide. Food production may be affected because there are higher demand of food, or a lot of chemicals have to be used, for instance. Health facilities are being overloaded. So, goal number 3 is the one that is being, not destroyed, being obstruct the most, I would say. Goal number 4, closure of school and limited internet access to students, reduce student access to learning. Goal number 5, I would say women are more vulnerable to the impacts because they might have things that are not being addressed. I would say in many countries, a lot of health complications are not being addressed. That can go to men as well, but women, sometimes healthcare, and so women can get pregnant. So this kind of healthcare might not be readily available in the face of COVID-19. Companies obviously are being forced to shut down. Many small businesses are being affected. Inequalities, I don't even have to talk about, a lot of problems. Goal 16, as you see during the COVID pandemic, also have a lot of conflicts and problems are being arise across cities. There are some people actually say that COVID-19 improved the situation of the environment. I actually disagree because during COVID lockdown, we eat out more. We use even more plastics. So how can you improve the situation of the oceans? You are, how to say, you demand more goods, so that will also affect the forest. And people spend more time at home. In the case of Thailand, you turn on more air conditions or you use a lot more electricity. So this also pump up a lot more. Well, you kind of offset it with less transportation, but you did not really offset it that much. And you can see during COVID pandemic, you still have PM 2.5 in the countries as well. PM 2.5, the burning of food and things still going on. So it doesn't mean that COVID-19 will eventually improve the situation of the environment. Is not. And earlier I was talking about the assessing different countries in terms of how COVID-19, how the progress of the SDG. So with COVID-19, I can say that I think every country is actually experience a reverse trend. So every country actually becoming less sustainable or more unsustainable during the past 2 years, which is unfortunate, but yes, that's the reality. Foresight come in because it's begged the question that if something unexpected were to happen again, how can we prepare? Or our model is not working right. What are alternative models? 5 years has passed, one big pandemic. What else can we do? What are the alternatives? What can we plan for the future? Who we need to engage? Who are the ones who affected the most? We need to bring them to the table and think about what kind of policies, what kind of budgets should be set or should be done in order to improve the country, and obviously leaving no one behind. So these are some positive things that Foresight might be able to help with COVID-19 recovery. Yeah.
I have a question, maybe to Dr. K. Just for your opinion, do you think that pandemic make people think more about sustainability? Or I just what do you think? Yeah. Yeah.
This is not actually an easy. Let me rephrase my answer. This is not actually a difficult question. It's actually a very easy one, but answering it is difficult. No.
Yeah.
No. 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 I would say no. When you have things such as pandemic, people are scared. I don't think they will care more about the environment, or I don't think they care about the sustainability of the country. They just care about how, they can survive daily, for instance, which is unfortunate, but that's my opinion. The quick answer is no. The long answer require huge elaboration and essay, but no. Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering as well, because I think with the pandemic, well, the most important thing that we think of is to survive. So with this in mind, we have to drop, let's say, a lot of value we have on sustainability. I think before the pandemic, there is a good trend on, green environment or whatever, but then all of a sudden we have to drop all these, things. And I wonder, when we really have to survive, how could we balance, between these two issues? Yeah.
There is actually a talk among the lecturer, the professor within the economics fields, which is like quite interesting, not really science, but something very interesting, because the economic, they think about the money. There is a field called behavioral economics. So you study the behavior of the people and then implement something that suit the behavior in order to gain benefits. So I was thinking perhaps there should be a study on this, on how we start, you know what I mean, right? To understand the behavior of the people within your country, within your society, and benefit from it.
Yeah.
So let's say Thai people, we love, what do we love? We need plastic bag, let's say. So, okay, since you cannot really, we try to ban plastic bag, but then now it's back again. So instead of ban it again, how can we, introduce a more sustainable plastic bags? Something we can think of.
Yeah. What do we have time for discussion? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Do.
Okay.
Please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. Thank you. What I'm interested in is to see how scientific literacy, I mean, the level of understanding of, the sustainability issues, could help people during the time of survival like this. For example, I personally observe that people who understand the impact of plastic or the plastic waste, or even the mask, the disposable mask, would prefer more, if possible, to use recyclable materials. For example, cloth masks. If when possible, something like that. At least if we can see the how do you call, if we can see that there is a tendency that people with better understanding on this issue could behave, some way in a more favorable to sustainability than people who have less understanding. Then we still have, how do you call, confident on working further, on this science literacy area. So that's what I'm interested in. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like so we have the pandemic for like almost 2 years now, right? So at the very beginning, like everybody was only worried about self-health and well-being, and how are they gonna make money under this situation and everything. But I think maybe now it's a good timing that people already settle down and they adjust themselves to the situation. They already know what might happen and they prepare themselves for any uncertainties. So I think this is maybe a perfect timing for initiate some collaboration for a further science literacy and raise awareness on how we can maintain the sustainability of the community and also the environment.
Yeah. So I think we have to have a belief that at least, if we get our people, I mean, in the ASEAN community equipped already, then their response, after they overcome their panic, okay, they will be able to behave more sustainably. Well, there are many ways that we can share, or we can try to be connected. I think the platform that Dr. K has mentioned is also very interesting, very useful. And also there are many other platforms that I think if the audience is listening, you can choose or you can follow this platform so that we can think together and work together in the future. For example, in Thailand, through the Ministry of Higher Education, we have this symposium on STI enculturation platform for sustainability. I think this is one that is open to all. So usually every August we have this forum. Okay. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, so this year we will probably postpone until November or December. That's one of the platform. Another platform I like to suggest for people in ASEAN is to get connected with Beijing Science Communication Network, which is quite open, and there's opportunity to share with expert in science communication. Which talk about issues, I mean, which area we should create better public understanding, and also talk about the practice of science communication. Dr. K just mentioned that scientists, many of the scientists maybe not able to, maybe are not able to communicate to the public very well. And in this network or forum, there are a lot of discussion on this and the practice how to empower the science communication skill of the researchers. So I think this is another network that we all can join in. And I think there are other ASEAN network, especially in STEM education. For example, STEM Ed, which is located in Thailand and in other countries. The point is, how could we know which platform or which forum is suitable for you or for your interest? I think this might be another homework, okay, for that we should have some communication platform, just a general communication platform to share these information. Then people who are interested can join, the more specific platform later. So I would suggest if the organizer could create certain, easy to access platform, for example, Facebook closed group or something like that, for us, to collaborate in ASEAN SDG, it would also be a good way that we keep communication and information flow. Okay, not in, I don't mean in theory, but in terms of activities, what is going on and what kind of thing you can join. Yeah.
Yes, and I totally agree with Dr. Kanika about the mechanism and the platform that's been going on right now. Like, for example, I heard from my colleague that there was a workshop called the ASEAN Foresight Alliance workshop that was, actually it was held last week, and this one was co-hosted by the Academy of Science Malaysia and Philippines together. So and I heard a rumor from like my colleagues that maybe Thailand would be a host next year if possible, but we're still not sure if it's going to be online or on site. So that will be another effective way to be connected within our region. Yeah. Well, so now we have about 15 minutes left in our session. Maybe I will just give a final question to both of the speakers. And that will be our last point of discussion for this morning. Well, my question would be, so what would be your suggestion in order to create and sustain the opportunity of the cross-cutting collaboration in order to achieve and maintain and make and improve the SDGs in the ASEAN member states? Maybe Dr. K, would you like to go first?
How to maintain, collaborate, and speak to one another, communicate. I still believe communication is the keys. Or I would say all ASEAN members have already so many knowledge and so many scientific breakthrough to improve a lot of SDG goals. The only thing is we don't know. You know what I mean, right? Like, not even, I don't know about what is happening in Philippines. I don't know about what is happening in Malaysia. I don't know what is happening in Vietnam, for example. And there are so many knowledge. There are so many, technologies going on in those countries. So communicate, talk, like trying to, well, if obviously workshop might not work, how are some other means? And trying, I don't know, I feel like ASEAN, we only focus on our own country to the people. Perhaps it is time that we open up and then learn from each other. That would be my very quick answer to your question.
Right,
what do you think?
Thank you. Okay. Dr. Kanika, do you have anything to share with us?
Yeah, I think first we have to believe that as ASEAN community, we have a lot of things in common. We have a common culture, common economic context, and well, and you can say common look sometime, right? Therefore, what the good practice from one country could be value of another country. I mean, we learn a lot from Westerners or different cultures, which is also very good because probably they are at 1 or 2 steps more advanced than us. But the wisdom, okay, the knowledge we have in our ASEAN community, of course, should be able to be adopt and adapt easier, you know, because we are similar and we understand each other. We can see each other closely, right? So we know what's your condition, what's your situation, you know. If we have this belief, then we will have a confidence and effort to try to get connect and work together. For me, I am connect with like a global network, but then I realized that not everything that I can use in our country, but when I connect to the network within the region, I see a lot of similarities that we can adopt in our country. So I think if we have this belief, okay, then you have a willingness to work together. Second, I agree with Dr. K that once you believe, you have to make effort to communicate and make effort to share. We are all very busy people. But then if you see the value, okay, in sharing, okay, why do we have to reinvent everything while our friend and our family in ASEAN has a good wisdom to share, right? I see, as I mentioned, Dr. K has very nice model of public engagement in policy, you know, for sustainability. If we can share this and try this in many countries and get feedback how effective they are, or maybe in Thailand we have some movies and clips and that promote literacy, science literacy. If we can share this resource, make a little bit more effort, okay, then we can make use of these good resource and make it benefit to our ASEAN community, okay. And last but not least, I think we should understand and see each other, look in other people's context even more. I like Dr. K's when you mentioned about a different area might be able to adopt to new technology differently, you know, the readiness to adopt the new technology. And I think even when we share, we also have to think of our friend in the ASEAN country, whether or not what we share is applicable for their context, or can we do some modification, a little bit of modification to fit the context of each other's, okay? If we have this flexibility of understanding each other, of learning and adjusting, I think we can work together, move forward together in a sustainable way.
Right, thank you. So I think this question is going to wrap up our session today. And what I learned today as a key message and like some take-home food for thoughts for all of the audience, including myself, is the connectivity between stakeholders are very important in order to initiate the collaboration and create a more sustainable future. And that connectivity includes like connection between scientists and communities, and also government organizations or other stakeholders. And so one of the most important tools that our speakers has suggested is the communication and how we share the knowledge between each other, right? And like Dr. Kanika mentioned that the ASEAN countries, like we share common culture and common wisdom, and that everything will make it easier for us to understand and to learn from each other. And eventually, hopefully we can promote the sustainability even without the rocket science, just like in Dr. K's success stories that he mentioned in his presentation. So I think this is a very inspiring information that I got today being a moderator. I'm not sure about the audience, but I'm pretty sure I've learned a lot, and most of you might have learned a lot from the talk today too. So well, like the speaker said that we should invite ourselves and invite our colleagues in order to collaborate with each other between countries and between organizations. So this could be one start point for everyone to start thinking about that, and then hopefully we'll be connected again in some of the platform. It could be in this meeting next year or in other platform that was initiated for the ASEAN collaboration and for the SDG sustainability. All right, so I think that will be it for this session. And on behalf of the organizing committee and the members, I would like to thank our two speakers today, Dr. Kanika Chen and Dr. K. Panthuwongpakdi, for your time and for accepting our invitation today. So I think the next one will be the lunch break for everyone, and we'll continue with the afternoon session as mentioned in the program on the website. Thank you very much, and everybody have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ สวัสดีค่ะ